Sir, next quick topic I quickly want to jump to is something which is making a lot of news in the last few days, and that is the GST compensation issue. States and center have a sort of disagreement, so to say, and we all know the center is facing a tough time in the wake of the pandemic in terms of its finances, and so other states. So, what do you make of the GST compensation issue?
See, GST compensation is a constitutional, legal, moral, ethical, whatever you say, responsibility of the central government.
Mm-hmm.
The GST compensation must be paid to the state.
Mm-hmm.
I think any talk or any sort of attempt not to pay GST compensation
Mm-hmm.
will be disastrous, will be very bad. It will be
Mm-hmm.
going back, it will affect the credibility of the central government.
Mm-hmm.
We had an episode earlier in 2007-8 when the compensation was promised by the government for adoption of VAT by the state government. And when
Mm-hmm.
the global financial crisis hit the country,
Mm-hmm.
the then government had gone back and had
Mm-hmm.
not paid that VAT compensation to the states.
Mm-hmm.
This had made the states so bitter and
Mm-hmm.
they virtually wrote off their faith in the central government. And
Mm-hmm.
the current government, especially Mr. Arun Jaitley, had to
Mm-hmm.
work very hard to restore that confidence. And that
Mm-hmm.
is why this watertight guarantee, this watertight sort of assurance was given that the GST compensation. It's unfortunate that the COVID came and the central government financial position also got very adversely affected. Central
Mm-hmm.
government tax revenues itself are very much down. But the
Mm-hmm.
central government has a way to meet its deficit. It
Mm-hmm.
can sort of borrow, it can monetize the deficit. And in such extraordinary times, even if
Mm-hmm.
you monetize this requirement of paying the GST compensation to the states, the central
Mm-hmm.
government must borrow and pay to the states. Under no circumstances the GST compensation should be either postponed or should be cancelled. It must be paid.
Okay. So should it be left on the GST Council to do the market borrowing, as there is some proposal being kind of floated?
So these are various mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
Whether the central government borrows or the GST council borrows or somebody else borrows,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think those are core of the issue. The
Mm-hmm.
core of the issue is the payment, and the core of liability is that of the central government, right?
Correct.
Uh,
Correct.
you push it to GST Council and say that we will extend the cess beyond 22 to pay back
Mm-hmm.
after 22. The
Mm-hmm.
states will not be required to be paid compensation. That's a
Mm-hmm.
way of sort of paying. The central government can also use the GST compensation beyond 22 to pay off its debt. So where you
Mm-hmm.
place this debt is not very germane, very material in my judgment. Let's stick to the core. The core is pay the GST compensation, and the central government should borrow, if not otherwise, to pay it. There's another
Okay.
option where you can put additional sort of GST duty on or cess on some other goods and commodities. But in the circumstances of today, possibly that option is not a very healthy option. It might not yield the kind of money which is required. So the simplest and the straightest thing is that the central government should borrow and pay to the states the GST compensation. Central government may recover it in agreement with the states by sort of collecting the compensation cess beyond 22 and using that proceeds to pay it back.
Okay. Okay. So got it. Just one follow-up question to what you said, and that is, so going forward, because the center's finances are constrained, and there was a formula 14% tax growth, and that kind of is now under pressure. 14% growth in this kind of environment is something very hard to come by, right? So should the center also negotiate with the states, though they are themselves facing huge finances constraints. But going forward, should there be a need for a review of the existing agreement between the states and the center?
I don't think we should do it any such review now. By the way, the petroleum products which are outside GST, the growth there by increasing the excise duty will probably be more than 14% this year, right? So it's not that the 14% is something extraordinary, and the central government is retaining much of the revenue growth on the petroleum products for itself by levying the non-shareable excise duty. So I don't think it's the time to revisit the formula 14% or whatever. That 14% is a solemn commitment. That 14% must be given to this. It should not be sort of made subject to any gymnastic of trying to refashion or restructure the